Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.
Getting traffic to your website or offer is actually pretty easy, right? The hard part is getting the kind of traffic you want, the ones that are going to become your actual customers. And to do that, it's going to all hinge on the keywords that you target.
Your keywords form the backbone of both your paid search and your SEO campaigns. The search terms you target with ads and content determine who sees your ads.
So in our last episode, we were talking about our audience analysis. And now we're going to kind of walk you through how to use that audience analysis to target specific keywords that are going to most likely have those customers convert when they see your offer or your website.
And once you have it, your keyword matrix will be a resource you return to through every subsequent step of your marketing.
This is Ryan Eldridge.
And this is Andrea Eldridge. Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy.
Cue the music. So this is episode number 3 of the Growth Marketer podcast. I'm Ryan Eldridge, Chief Strategist of Squirrel Digital Marketing.
And this is Andrea Eldridge, Creative Director at Squirrel Digital Marketing. If you're joining us again, welcome back. This is the 3rd episode in our series where we're going over how to gain leads for your business without cold calling or knocking on doors.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, what exactly is a keyword?
Well, a keyword really is it's kind of a marketer speak for the search terms people enter into a search engine to find your service, your offer, your product, or something like that.
And what is it that makes that so important to your marketing plan?
Well, prior to Facebook, AdWords was really the easiest way for you to get targeted traffic to a specific offer that you had. So let's say for an example, you were selling, we're about to use an example of DSLR cameras, right?
One of your more favorite things,
yeah. So you want to be able to be in front of that customer that is looking for information or looking to purchase that camera. And so you've got to almost read their mind. What are they going to type in when they're looking to buy or when they're looking to educate themselves, so you can differentiate your product from someone else's product, that kind of stuff.
So is it that you're only looking to target those keywords that have a buying intent?
Well, usually what I use AdWords for in general is those people that are really looking, we call them bottom of the funnel. They're looking to purchase right now. It's almost like a Yellow Pages replacement. Whereas Facebook I use more as like the discovery, like I'm discovering things. And in Facebook you don't really use keywords, so it's not really relevant to this, but it's different in how I target my customers. Now, when it comes to AdWords, most people, like me, are choosing to go after those high intent, I'm ready to buy type keywords. But you can also use AdWords the same as you would Facebook and educate your customers and drive traffic to comparison charts or educational products that then will bring them further along their buying cycle into a final intention to purchase something.
Well, and you've indicated before that keyword volume and intent are both things to consider, but that your ideal combination is a high intent, long tail keyword.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that?
So let's say you're going to go after, window washing. Let's say you're going to go after, let's say you have a window washing business, right?
Okay.
And so you might think, oh man, you know what? If I can just get anybody on the internet that's searching for window washing, I will rake in the cash. Well,
Seems valid.
The problem is when you do window washing, you might run across searches for companies that do window washing, products that do window washing, different soaps you can use, pressure hoses. I mean, it's a massive, not really targeted keyword.
People just looking for how to power wash their windows or whether or not you should power wash your windows. So, I mean, you're right. You could get really away from the demographic or audience of people that are actually looking to potentially engage with your product or service.
But what would be considered a more high intent keyword there would be something like window washing services in Irvine, California.
So like a geolocator, because that indicates people who are actively looking for a provider near them, giving an indication that they're at the place in their buying cycle where they're more likely to be looking to engage a service provider.
Correct. So that would be considered a long tail, high intent keyword. But if you flip it and you go low intent, long tail keyword, that would be something more like how to power wash my windows on a budget, right? It'd be a really long tail. You're going to have very low search volume, but you're also going to get low intent to purchase something from you. Doesn't mean you won't eventually target it, because you can bring that person in who's like, oh, I'm going to just do this myself. I'm like a weekend warrior. And then he reads your article and goes, oh my God, I'm going to need all of this equipment. It's going to take me all this time. And then I'm still going to have to figure out how to do it. Maybe I'll just hire somebody. And then you can have your offer right there in that ad or in that piece of content.
So while it's a little off topic maybe of the keyword matrix, I think what you're getting at there is saying that just because a term is low intent and even possibly low volume doesn't mean it's worthless, because it probably also is not very competitive. But you're going to have to put in a lot more work to get that specific purchaser, or I'm sorry, not purchaser, in this case, just searcher, to a place in their buying cycle where they might buy. And so you're going to be potentially investing money and resources in terms that are going to take quite a bit more nurturing. And so it's better to focus your primary marketing attention on those keywords that are likely to bring you viewers that are a little further along in their buying cycle, a little more focused on a buying intent, because you don't have to work so hard to get them transitioned and potentially go through, such a low percentage of conversion to buyers because the people weren't even looking with ever having an intent to buy in the first place.
Yeah, and with a keyword matrix, you're really going to use it for two separate purposes. One purpose is for your pay-per-click campaigns, your AdWords, your Bing, things like that. But you're also going to be using it to target people with your SEO or your content marketing. Because if you go after a really long tail keyword, no matter what the intent is, sometimes AdWords will send back that it's low search volume. And so they won't show your ad anyway. But it doesn't mean that you can't go after those. You just go after those with your SEO and your content marketing.
Well, and you've also mentioned before that if people go through your ad based on a certain search term that they've entered in, and or not necessarily your ad, but even just they get to your page and it's not relevant to what they're looking for because you've targeted a keyword that maybe isn't particularly relevant to a product you're selling, that they're looking for how to do something themselves and you're selling a specific product. And so when they click through, they get to a product page. That they'll leave that page quickly, causing Google to see that your page has a pretty high bounce rate, and that's not beneficial either. Well, for the user experience, but also for your marketing campaign, right?
Especially if they're bouncing back to the search engine results, which can cause Google to derank you for that search term because they assume that you're not being as helpful as they want you to be.
So the next thing we need to talk about then would be how you find these magical, perfect keywords to build your ad and SEO campaign around. Most people would think that the first thing you do is just make a list of the keywords that you guess your target audience is looking for. Mm-hmm. And I hear that's not the right way to go.
Well, I mean, brainstorming is something you certainly can do, but then you're getting only one person's perspective. And so it just depends on the amount of data that you have available to you. So
and it's also going to probably start you with some pretty darn common keywords. So things like, for example, divorce lawyer in Reno, which is going to have a huge amount of competition. So it's going to be really expensive.
And one of the other things is when you're in your own business, you tend to have a lexicon or a certain vocabulary that you use that maybe someone else who's looking to purchase your products or services wouldn't necessarily have, right? And so like if I'm a gardener and I know that one of my biggest things in the springtime is grass irrigation. Not irrigation, but when they put those little spiky things on their feet and they walk around.
Aerating.
Yes, so let's say that's a really popular thing for me in the springtime. And so I'm going to run some keyworded ads around, grass or whatever it's called.
But obviously your potential customer has no idea what that term is since we struggled so hard to come up with it.
Exactly. So instead, you'd want to talk more about like how to keep a healthy lawn or top 5 ways to make your lawn
grass
healthy.
Green and avoid dead spots. And I see what you're saying. So look for what it is that your customer is looking for, which brings us to what is step 1, identify your customer.
Yeah.
So this we went over in quite a bit of detail in the last episode. So if you didn't catch episode 2, where we went over audience analysis and creating customer personas, we'll just give you kind of a quick overview.
Good.
So you want to basically start by considering your existing customer. That would be if you have an established brand, you're going to look at customers that are already purchasing your services, using your products, those that are engaging with your brand on social media. That's going to give you an idea of those to whom you've already sold your product or service, which is, obviously your first goal here is to figure out who that is and be able to create like a detailed overview or picture of what that customer is, and that would be their persona, and that's going to include things like and you will have more than one, because obviously you don't just have one person or type of person purchasing your product or service, right? So you're going to create several personas for who your most common customer type is, and that's going to include things like gender, their job, their interests, their hobbies, but also you're going to go into things like, what are their specific pain points? What is it that causes them to struggle that your product potentially offers a solution for? What are they looking for a solution for? That then you can target your advertising specifically around their particular pain points.
Just to give an example, we go back to the window washer thing, right? If you're shopping for a window washer and I'm shopping for a window washer, we're going to have two separate kinds of motivations, right? Mm-hmm. I might be thinking, well, I don't want to spend all my Saturday doing all that work, and I'm going to be really focused on the kinds of equipment that I'm going to need and how much time it's going to take and the products I'm going to use, where you might be concerned more about fitting it into your schedule. When can they come by? Do they do weekends? Do they do weekdays? What is the cost of that? How quickly can I book online so I can do this at 9 o'clock after my kids go to bed?
It's true. You and I have entirely different things that we search for when we search for a service provider, even for something in our own home.
So that's why you create each persona differently, and you really want to focus on what that person's motivations are. And the easiest way to do that is to create these detailed personas and then name them. Give them all names, go on Google and find a little picture in Google Images, put a picture on it. So that way, when you're crafting your marketing messages, you're really talking to that person. And it makes a huge difference in trying to identify who it is you're trying to go after, whose mind you're essentially trying to read.
And, if you want some more specifics, we spent quite a bit of time on this in our last episode. Yeah. So swing back over, check out episode 2, or go to our site and look at the detailed article that we wrote about it. We include a link to where you can get a customer persona builder, so it can help you really walk through this process.
Yeah, excellent.
And so once you've done that, you've identified your customer, your next step is going to be finding the topics that your customers care about. You don't want to build a bunch of content around guesses. It's going to waste time. It's going to waste money. As much as, you may think of content creation as a relatively inexpensive task, it's really not. It's hugely time intensive for whoever it is that's writing that content and then promoting that content. Yeah. So you don't want to spend a lot of time going down a rabbit hole on a wrong path.
Yeah, especially if you're not writing your own content. If you've got employees writing it or you're outsourcing it somewhere, that can get, if you're writing a nice epic piece of content, can take 20 to 25 hours and at just a standard rate of, say, anywhere from 15 to 20 hour or $15 to $20 an hour, you're looking at, $300-400 just for that one piece of content. That's a big investment. With SEO, a lot of people think, oh, SEO is freaking cheap. It's super easy because it's just a matter of elbow grease. But consider the amount of time it takes you, even if you're doing it all on your own, the amount of time it takes you to do it. Versus you doing something else that may have an actual revenue
monetary benefit to your specific bottom line. Yeah, and just the time and energy it takes to create. It's not just about creating it either. It's not just like you create it, post it, and then the traffic just rolls right in. You have to promote that content, and all of this takes time and energy and resources. Yeah. So. And obviously, you can't just post one article and have that be the backbone of your SEO campaign. Yeah. You've got a lot of time and resources you're going to be putting into building out your SEO. So it's super important that you do the basic work first in terms of determining your customers, your audience analysis, your keyword matrix. As much as this stuff sounds probably relatively dry and boring to a number of users, it did initially to me as well. The longer I've been involved with it, the more I've seen how fundamental it is, because it builds the basis of everything else you're going to create is about having the right keyword focus, which is based on your audience analysis, which is based on your customer persona.
Everybody just wants to get in and let's just get an ad up and let's see how it goes.
Let's just write the ad. Let's just get it done.
But you're going
to spin your wheels.
You know what? Instead, just take a $20 bill, throw it in an envelope, send it to me, and I'll just go ahead and take that money for you. Don't do it. So take the time, spend a little energy doing this. So one of the ways that we do it is we use Reddit as a really good resource.
Well, just as a basis before we specifically mention Reddit, what you're looking for when you're trying to figure out the topics that your customer is interested in. A great resource that the internet offers already are forums, places where people ask questions related to specific topics. So while Reddit is, yes, a really good resource that we utilize a lot, there are other places where people look for answers to questions. That would be places like Quora, YouTube, any sort of forum site where it gives someone the opportunity to enter a specific question that then you can search for questions related to a search topic. That gives you a wealth of information. As you were starting to mention, we do use Reddit to give us some direction when we're looking for topics that a customer is interested in under a specific keyword.
Yeah.
And here's how.
So, well, thank you. So with Reddit, it's actually pretty easy. You can type in your main keyword, or we call them your head keyword, into Reddit itself, and you'll get just kind of a list of different topics that people are talking about, and then you can just go within those threads and kind of eavesdrop on each one of those conversations and see what are they talking about, what are they interested in, are they talking about, if we go back to DSLR cameras, are they talking about lenses, are they talking about the bodies, are they talking about how long batteries last, are they talking about specifically how do you take photos? And you're just trying to get a sense of what are they using to find information, what words are they using, what questions are they asking the other people in the forum that they're getting answers to.
Well, and the nice thing is you can organize the search results so that you can choose. There's an option for choosing top, which will give you the most popular conversation threads. So you're not having to weed through, questions that have only elicited or been asked once, or have no commentary on them at all. You can see quite clearly and quickly what the most common conversations are people are having. If you start with entering a broad search term for your specific industry, so in your example it would be camera, or you could do car window tinting, and look for those threads that are popular first, and then from those that are the most popular threads, you want to take it one step further and you want to look for terms that are conversion based. So for example, you can do an advanced search and you can add a term buying amongst your search results for that camera example, for example. And then you would use the topics that your customers are most engaged with to create a list of potential topics around which then you would potentially be able to create content. So for example, in your camera question, if it was, what are the best lenses for distance shots? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a camera person, but I'm just going to fill in the blanks there. Then that would be a potential topic that you could write an article around to provide some information to customers, potential customers that are in the field looking for a specific kind of lens recommendation and why it's better than others. You're going to have the opportunity to provide a whole bunch of information, present yourself as the expert, but also give them basically an instant access to a place where they can purchase that specific lens. Hey, look, it's right there.
Yeah. Or you can say, well, you can do different brands, because there's kind of like in the camera world, it's the same as with the computer world or even the phone world. Like there's Nikon versus Sony versus Canon, and they never cross over, and the lenses don't work across the others. So if somebody were looking for lenses, that's a relatively high intent area, and you run an ad around very specific lenses. You could even run an ad around, like, say, the top 5 lenses every beginner needs in their bag, right? And they would click on that ad, take a look at it, and go, oh, look at this, and then you just put in your links to purchase the products within there. But if you don't even sell lenses, you just sell camera bodies, you can have something like, these are the top 5 lenses, and then here's the top 5 lenses for the Nikon, which is considered the best camera in the world, and you can kind of bring them into your actual field of expertise, if it's just camera bodies you're selling or whatever.
So obviously Reddit can give you a lot of information, but it can also be somewhat time consuming. So there is an interesting tool available. It's called Keywordit. So it's K-E-Y for key, word, and then W-O-R-D-D-I-T. So there's 2 Ds. And basically what that will do is it offers you like a Reddit keyword research tool. So you enter the name of the subreddit, that means like the search thread that you're interested in, into its search field, and then it'll basically generate you a list of the keywords that would be related to that specific search query. So it kind of just gives you that synopsis of the keywords that you could potentially pull from a popular thread in one easy list, and makes that process a little faster for you. Basically, you just want to make sure that you get at least 5 content ideas or topics from your search work here. That's like kind of your minimum that you want to start with to be able to build out some potential keyword search terms, and from that, possibly some content around popular search queries and topics that your customer is actually interested in.
And before we move on to another like online topic, another good idea is if it's a business that's already running, and let's say it's a medium-sized business that has a customer service department or a sales department, you'll want to talk to the people within the company and ask them, what are people looking for? What are your common questions that people are asking you? Mm-hmm. That'll also help you. We at one of our companies has an entire like customer database, and so as customers are telling us what their problems are, the dispatchers, the people who are answering the phones, are literally writing word for word what the customer is saying, even if it makes no sense at all. Yeah. Because then you can take those words and create keywords out of them. So if somebody says like, I'm getting this black screen and my computer goes buzz buzz, while we don't know what the heck that means, but someone somewhere knows what that means, and that's what they're typing into Google is, how do I stop my computer from going with a black screen and going buzz buzz? And now you've got a whole keyword that nobody else is targeting.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is certainly a vague keyword. Yep. Okay, so your next step, once you've figured out the topics that your customers are interested in, you need to identify the keywords from those topics. So we kind of touched on that with the tool that we recommended, the Keyword It. Another place that you can get keyword suggestions is Google itself. So if you've ever noticed when you start to type a search query into Google, it'll pop up an auto population of like what it thinks you might be interested in learning as you start to type a keyword, mm-hmm. some of which are terrifying and frightening, but others are interesting, and some, in our sense of what we're using it for, are helpful for your marketing because it's showing you what the most popular search terms are that people type into Google. So for example, let's say you were typing in on-page SEO. If you do on-page SEO and then space, it's going to pre-populate with things like on-page SEO checker, on-page SEO tutorial, on-page SEO and off-page SEO. It's going to give you basically an instant list of what the longer tail keyword searches are that people are looking for. And you know that if Google's suggesting it, people as they search are going to probably choose the longer term that's more relevant to what they're looking for, because mm-hmm. who wouldn't? I mean, if you know that you're looking for something in particular and you start with something relatively broad and Google shows you a common search term for exactly what you're looking for, then you're going to choose that. Yeah. So it's just common search behavior.
Especially on mobile, where typing out several words mm-hmm. can take you some time, especially for us older people. But what Google does is makes it a little easier. Well, I don't type as fast on my phone as I do on my computer. Yeah.
You're so old. Yeah. Okay. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to see this list of suggested searches and write those down. And then you're going to start entering those searches in Google and see what it suggests, and keep going until you're just basically seeing the same suggestions over and over again. And there's a little trick hear, which is that you're supposed to put a few spaces before your keyword mm-hmm. because that can completely change the results that you see in your searches. Yep. I didn't know that, so that was a little fun fact that I learned when we were.
You can also use a tool, and I think it comes up here in a little bit, but there's another tool you can use called Ubersuggest, and what it does is it basically scrapes Google's suggesting algorithm, and it'll start with like doing A space and then keyword, B space keyword, and so it'll kind of show you some of the different Ubersuggest.
There.
They'll give you a bunch of different ideas because they just essentially scrape Google's information from their suggestion tool. So that's pretty cool.
Well, and there's also, if you go down at the bottom, so like, you've entered a search term in and you see a bunch of, you see the ads and then you see the SERPs, and then at the bottom it says searches related to on-page SEO in our example, for example, mm-hmm. Or searches related to, and that'll give you a whole other list of potential keyword, long tail keywords to look into and see which of them would be relevant to your customer. So that's the key here, is you're not just looking to write content around anything people are searching for. You're wanting to basically match those up with your customer personas and say, okay, what would my specific customer be looking for that would result in my product or service offering a solution, so that you can really focus on those keywords, those long tail keywords that are relevant to your specific business.
And if you're doing this just for SEO and you're thinking, oh, I'm never going to pay for traffic because paying for traffic's for suckers, it isn't. But if that's what your intent is, I'm just going to create a bunch of SEO content and bring people organically to my website and kind of grow normally. That's fine, but use something called the Google Keyword Planner. You only have access to it if you have an AdWords account, but setting up an AdWords account is trivial. You essentially just sign up for one. It doesn't cost you anything. But once you have access to it, it'll start giving you suggestions too. And the beauty of this is it's giving you suggestions on phrases and keywords and search terms that people are paying for in order to get in front of their audience. And so if you typed in, Microsoft Office is one of your searches, it'll give you a bunch of high intent search terms that people are targeting and paying for people to come to their websites for. So it might be buy Microsoft Office or Microsoft Office 2007 pirated version, or who knows what it is. Yeah. But using that will give you lots and lots of data. Plus the keyword planner also will give you estimated search volumes. It doesn't give you accurate search volumes. I don't know why they keep hiding it, but
we'll talk about how to get around that in just a few minutes. So,
yeah,
they give you to that.
Okay, well, I'll skip it. We'll get to that in a minute then.
Basically, at this stage in the process, what you're looking for is to create just this massive list of keywords and search terms. And so you're going to be using the tools we've mentioned. So you brought up Google Keyword Planner. You also just a minute ago mentioned Ubersuggest. Another one is keywordtool.io. Those are all resources that can help just identify popular keywords in your niche. And so through all of this process, you've basically created yourself this huge list of keywords and search terms. So what's next?
Well, now you need to categorize them and group them together so that way you can kind of like use them. I mean, if you just have a list of 10,000 keywords, you're never going to be able to go through that list and really dig out specific themes or group concepts together, because somebody who's looking for a cheap DSLR camera isn't necessarily going to be looking for your super high-end DSLR cameras. And so you want to group those people together in affordable, cheap, things like that. Whereas maybe your higher end ones, you're going to target differently, right? With different kinds of
quality and things.
And somebody who's looking for high quality is probably more on the professional level. So you might be able to use more jargon, and they might look for specific things like Nikon D7200, with a f-stop, of blah, blah, blah. So they might have very specific ways that they're searching for something that an amateur isn't going to use.
So basically what you're saying is bust out those Excel skills.
Yeah. You want to create a good Excel sheet, and you want to just basically group together by theme or by concept.
Those that you keep seeing over and over again, your recurring themes and concepts.
Yeah.
So what is this? How does this benefit you, going to all the effort of grouping these into specific structure and a grouping keywords and search terms by recurring themes or concepts? How does that benefit you?
Well, one, it makes the data easier for you to kind of just understand what's happening, but it's important because it's easier for search engine crawlers to index your website. So let's say, for an example.
Oh, so like you're saying, if you organize your site architecture as you create your content around similar keywords, it'll be an easier site structure for crawlers.
Let's say you're selling small consumer electronics, right? And if Google goes to your page and you've got on your home page, you're going to have a massive conglomeration of different products, from phones to tablets to video game systems, televisions, all kinds of stuff. And that's really confusing. Google's like, I don't know what the heck this page is about. But that's your home page, and you're really just trying to get people to go deeper into the website. But as soon as somebody clicks on cameras, for example, they're going to want to see nothing but cameras. That's what they expect to see. And Google's the same way. Is if you're going after very specific keywords about cameras, but you have a bunch of phones on there, Google's going to be kind of like, I don't understand what you're trying to do here. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. So you want to group those together so that way you can kind of keep like keywords together. Plus, the days are gone where you would type in and repeat your keyword over and over and over on your web page, because it's just not good for humans, because we read it and go, oh my God, this person doesn't know how to write at all. and it's not good for Google, because that person who's seen that web page with your keyword stuffed in there 150 times is bailing, and Google's learning that, this isn't a good page for people to go to.
Well, and keyword stuffing can get you actual negative
Yeah.
ramifications.
You can
from
get
Google.
delisted. You can get just deranked. You can lose ranking because of it.
So do not do it.
Yeah. So what grouping these together does is it allows you to say, so if you're talking about DSLR cameras, people are also going to be talking about these other things surrounding DSLR cameras, or if it's a phone, they're going to be talking about other things surrounding the phone, and not always using the same exact words, right? They may talk about phone cases. They might talk about how long it charges, or different accessories you can use for your phone, and all of that should be included in that grouping.
Yeah. So, obviously at this point we could go into a whole long detailed structure of how to create this magical spreadsheet with columns and pages and all sorts of fun
make
things.
sure your cursor is on 1A and type these. Never mind.
So instead, if you go to our site and follow the link to our How to Create a Keyword Matrix article, we actually have a link on there where we can send you a keyword toolkit that'll give you all that you need to create your own keyword matrix. We also have some examples on there that show you how to structure your columns around specific portions of your keyword, like your header versus your body words and your long tails, to be able to more quickly and easily create your own specific spreadsheet with your specific search terms. So we're going to kind of just say you should do that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to say, once you have this snazzy spreadsheet with grouped keywords and search terms, what do you do?
Well, now you need to rank them by their potential. And you could do this a couple of different ways. You need to determine what their search volume is and what their general worth is. And so you can use different tools like Keyword Finder, KW Finder, for example, or SEMrush. You just enter in your keyword, and it'll give you what they're estimating the search volume is. Remember, Keyword Planner, if you use Google's Keyword Planner, it's giving you estimated, or almost like a symbolic number that it says your volume is, but it's not accurate at all. Like if it says there's 800 search terms or searches a month for that particular key term, it's not accurate. It's absolutely terrible. Now the one on Bing for Bing Webmaster Tools is totally accurate, but you're only getting Bing data, and nobody uses Bing. Seriously, if you use Bing, you shouldn't use it. Go use Google. So, but Google hides all of that stuff.
Gotcha.
So you get this symbolic number rather than the real number. But what SEMrush and Keyword Finder, what they'll do is they'll give you sort of their index volume, what they think the volume of that is. And it tends to be fairly accurate. If you wanted to be 100% sure, you could use a keyword that you already know the volume of, something that you're already using, and plug that in and get your plus or minus of error.
Gotcha.
It's not really worth it, though. Just take their word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also gives you cost per click, which is important for determining if the term is highly competitive or relatively available, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But even those Keyword Finder and SEMrush, it's not a totally complete picture because sometimes search volume is either on an increase or a decrease. If it's staying stable, then that's great. But a lot of times, people change how they look for a specific product or service over time. Sometimes it's seasonally, sometimes it's when something's rebranded recently. And so there's another tool that you can use, Google Trends, which will show you more of that data. Yeah,
it essentially will show you can enter in different search terms, and it'll give you sort of a graph of how well that search term is performing versus another search term. And so you can compare two different search terms at the same time, 3, 4, 5 different search terms. So you can use this for brands. You can see, who's winning, Pepsi or Coke? Or you can see specific words, like if you typed in iPhone 8 versus iPhone 10, you're going to see a very clear message that the iPhone 10 is dominant in news and media and mentions on the web versus the iPhone 8.
Pixel or
over the Pixel, or you can just type in Apple versus Microsoft and see what those are, and just use the Google Trends to kind of get a sense of it first. But once you do, it's a really powerful tool. One of the things we talk about in the article is when Google switched from Google Webmaster Tools to Google Search Console. And if you were an SEO company or you were trying to sell services, you might refer constantly in your articles and your pieces that you're trying to attract customers to, talking about Google Webmaster Tools. Well, over the course of time, people stopped looking for Google Webmaster Tools and started looking for Search Console. And so now all of your content is going to be slightly out of date. But if you're doing keyword research, you can kind of see what are the trends, what has been the trend over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and you can target your keywords a little easier that way.
and potentially predict those keywords that are on an upswing, so you know what's best to invest in versus those that are on a decline.
Yeah, and you can really get ahead of your competition that way. So if your competition's a little more,
slow to react.
Yeah, you can catch up.
So let's get back to cost per click,
Okay.
because we just kind of started to talk about that. And this is important for the next step, which is commercial intent. What's commercial intent?
Well, it's when somebody is likely to make a purchase.
Not so obvious, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
okay.
It
Obvious to you. Okay.
And one of the things that you can use Keyword Planner for is, because it's an AdWords tool, it'll tell you what the suggested bid for a particular search term is. But it can be a little misleading, because some search terms that are really generic, like if you were to just type in just SEO into the Keyword Planner, it's going to tell you it's like $57 for that term. Well, that's because, first of all, whoever is just bidding on just the term SEO, you're crazy. You shouldn't do that. But you'll see that it's a really highly competitive search term, because a lot of people, that's all they're putting in their keyword for that, their service or their product or their tool or whatever it is they're selling.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, that sometimes those bids are just crazy. But if you're gonna go into, let's say you're selling Velcro straps, for example, you can go in there and type in Velcro straps, and it'll tell you roughly what the bid
Price,
amount for that particular search term is. And you can type in Velcro straps black, or Velcro straps for industrial use, things like that, and it'll keep giving you these different prices. So it tells you roughly what is that search term worth to Google, to what are you going to roughly have to pay for it, but it also gives you kind of a glance into what the intent is of the audience based on the amount of money people are willing to spend to get that customer to come to their site.
And that's basically what you're looking for, is how competitive a term is, how expensive it is to get an ad in that space, but also that tells you how many people are going after it and how crowded your SERP's struggle is likely to be if you start to try and create content around that word.
Yeah. And like I said, if you're creating content, you can go after much more long tail keywords, because once you start putting those long tail keywords into AdWords, it's going to tell you that it has low search volume, and it's just not going to serve your ad anyway.
Okay, so another option for finding an idea of how competitive a term would be just simply typing that term into Google and seeing how many ads show up, because more ads means it's going to be more expensive and harder to rank for an SEO.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds like your goal here is to identify high volume, high intent keywords with low competition, which is pretty much like the Holy Grail. Yeah. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be super possible, but how do you pick amongst your keywords that you've now created into this massive list and now determined how competitive they are, the search volume? How do you figure out which ones to target?
Well, one of the biggest temptations when you're building out your campaigns is to go after traffic, as much traffic as you can, and then let that traffic kind of figure itself out while it's on your website. But if you're paying for the content to be created, or you're paying for the ads, I would say get away from that temptation, right? Because you're really just kind of gathering as many fish as you can and hoping that some of them are the ones you were looking for. And unfortunately, that's just not a good way to fish, right? Yeah. You're going to end up with all kinds of crazy stuff in there. And you're going to spend a lot of your time dealing with irrelevant leads or people asking questions that aren't really relevant to whatever it is you're trying to sell or do. So we created almost like a little quadrant-based system where you can, if you go to the website, and you can either go to squirreldigitalmarketing.com/podcast and look at the show notes from this particular podcast, or you can go over to our blog and look for our keyword matrix blog post, and you'll see the graph that we've created. And it's essentially just think of a picture with 4 different quadrants, and then obviously the way that high intent versus low.
Well, I think what you're graphing search volume to user intent. Yes. So one of your, your height on the graph is going to be determined based on search volume. So the more search volume, the higher on your graph it'll be. And then user intent is going to be higher user intent will go farther to the right. Yeah. Lower user intent will go left. And basically you're going to find where those two things meet for that specific keyword. And that will place it somewhere on your quadrant. And your quadrants basically will be those words that are, if it's got a high search volume, But low user intent, you're going to be in the high traffic, low intent quadrant.
Like digital cameras would
Yes,
be high traffic, low intent.
You've got, if you're on the far right upper corner, you're going to be in Holy Grail territory. That's going to be high traffic, high intent keywords. If perhaps you have high intent but lower search volume, then that's going to go farther down into that lower right-hand quadrant, which is going to be high intent, low traffic. And then the keywords that you want to avoid for the most part, other than, perhaps like a specific, if you've just got nothing but time and resources, then I guess you could put some towards those low intent, low traffic keywords.
Yeah.
But once you get all of your keywords, basically graphed out on this quadrant graph, it becomes really easy to see which keywords you want to put the bulk of your resources into targeting. And by resources, I mean not just money for pay-per-click ads, because maybe some of those ads or some of those terms might be expensive. So, kind of take that into context in terms of you've now also figured out the cost for those ads. But for your SEO content as well is focusing on those keywords that have high volume and high intent, and ideally factoring in the level of competition.
Yeah. And generally, when you're doing like a high intent long tail keyword, it's going to be several words. It's not going to be one or two words. You're looking at 4 or 5 different words. So you might have best cameras for Christmas 2017. Right? And that if you are honing in on that particular market that's looking for best of lists for cameras, that's a pretty high intent market. They're probably going to be purchasing something for Christmas in 2017. But where you'd want to steer away from would be just that real generic
best cameras.
You're going to get a little bit better than just typing in digital cameras, but you're not going to get quite the intent to buy, right? They just might be looking at different reviews. They might be looking at consumer reports type stuff. So keep that in mind.
And basically, those best search terms from your keyword matrix become what you should focus your campaign around.
Yeah, it's really the keyword matrix is the backbone of your entire marketing campaign, especially when you're doing content, SEO, and pay-per-click. Without knowing what your searchers are looking for and what they're saying just before they make their purchase, you're really just kind of shooting in the dark.
So as much as it takes some time and effort to build out that information, it pays to do it right.
Yes.
And that's all we have for today. So thank you for tuning in to Growth Marketer Academy today. Be sure to head over to squirreldigitalmarketing.com/podcast to see the resources that we talked about on the show.
And if you liked our show, make sure that you take a minute to rate and review our podcast in whatever medium you're on. So if you're on YouTube and you're watching our video, you can maybe make a comment and tell us what you like, what you didn't like. And if you're on iTunes or Stitcher, obviously give us a rating and tell us how awesome I am.
Just him, not me. Just him. Yeah.
She's all right.
And if you have any questions that you want us to cover in a future episode, or if there's something you want us to clarify, feel free to leave a comment and we'll check it out.
What are we doing in our next episode?
Well, it's exciting. It is. Aren't they all though? Why email should be a cornerstone of your business-to-business lead generation plan. You don't think it needs to be, but it does.
Oh, nobody uses email anymore. Everybody's texting now.
That's what I'm saying. Right. You don't know this yet, and we're going to tell you.
I don't know this yet. I can't wait.
Well, you know this yet, but
I'm going to get schooled.
I can't wait. See you next time. This has been Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.